Okay, so it's recording now. And then for those of you who are in attendance, if you don't mind in the chat, just putting your name, your major, or if you're an alumni or community member, just so we know more about who is joining us today. And to get us started, so this discussion with our panelists is about overcoming rejection in your job search and succeeding in your job search. So as some of you may know already from experience, or maybe you've heard from other people who have gone through a job search, one of the more difficult parts of doing a job search or an internship search is having some of those rejections come through when you're applying. And so our panelists today thankfully agreed to kind of just share their insight and their experience with that. And hopefully for those of you who may be experiencing that, that'll give you some encouragement or some advice. So to get our conversation started, I am going to have each of our panelists just go around and briefly introduce themselves, say a little bit about where you currently work or whatever other information you would like us to know about you. And then if you don't mind, just kind of briefly explaining what type of job search you were conducting when you experienced the rejection. So just kind of giving a brief overview of that. So I'm just going to go in order on my screen and we will start with Jerri.
Sure. So my name is Jerri Arnold-Cook and I'm a career resources specialist. And I actually went back and looked at an old Excel spreadsheet, and the very first, because I'm what would you call a seasoned professional, very first job search I did for a professional position, I looked and I applied for 165 jobs. I got 34 interviews and 3 job offers. So, but the most recent, like within the decade that you all were born, December 2019, my job was eliminated. And I found myself over 50 with over 20 years experience and a doctorate trying to find a job in higher education. And it took 18 months.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And then Natalie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Benne. Currently, I am a graduate student at MSU in the Student Affairs and Higher Education program. I'm going to be starting my second year in the fall, so I'm really excited about that. But in our program, we have to complete a summer internship / practicum experience. And so this summer, or more so this past spring, this past fall, I was looking for a lot of different opportunities and having to get all of my internship stuff together, and applied for quite a few different ones and could not find, the right one, got rejection. And then thankfully, I ended up getting to do my practicum currently now at the University of Missouri-Columbia. So I'm up at Mizzou in their fraternity and sorority life office, getting to learn from them. But I also have had previous internship experiences where I got rejected, finally had an internship with someone that originally I was rejected from. So, lots of rejection going on there, but I think that's just all part of the experience.
Thank you, Natalie. And then Yuganesh.
Okay, so my name is Yuganesh Gunalan. I'm currently pursuing a double master's at Missouri State, MBA with a graduate certificate in management and a Master of Science in project management. I am currently doing my internship at a consulting firm, engineering consulting firm called Crawford Murphy & Tilley. I'm part of the aviation planning group, and my official designation is aviation planning intern. My job search started literally on my my first semester of grad school itself, fall of 2019. I will be starting my third year with my double master's. It added another year. But my first year, I started my internship search, applied to multiple companies. I decided to pivot away from my industry. My background is in aviation management. And I looked into various opportunities, applied everywhere. So I finally found one internship And then COVID came along, and that kind of deferred that internship. I got an internship with a company that sells private jet. It's a private jet sales and acquisition company. And then that didn't work out. COVID happened. And then I restarted my process again back in fall of last year. And then again, the same thing applied to various companies, constant rejections over and over again. And then I've had rejections coming in like as soon as 5 minutes or 2 months, and then in February, I actually got an internship offer from a company that, like Natalie said, rejected me. They didn't quite reject me. They couldn't hire me. They loved me, but company needs shifted as soon as they interviewed me. So they couldn't take me in back then. But then I reached out to them again in January of this year and said, hey, I'm still in the market. If you guys are interested, I'll love to interview. And then in February, got an offer. Great pay, great benefits, and here I am in Kansas City, Missouri.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Yuganesh. And I also just wanted to say I appreciate all of you kind of sharing your stories about rejection, because I know it's not always the easiest thing to talk about or the thing that people really want to talk about when they talk about their job search, but obviously it is kind of a part of it. So I do appreciate you all just kind of briefly sharing about your experience. And just to kind of get us started with our next question that we'll move into, and I'll just let whoever wants to hop on first and answer this question, feel free. And so thinking about maybe back to when you were first preparing for your job search, what pieces of advice do you have for preparing for a job search, for applying to jobs, to kind of help you get to that point where you are successful in your job search?
I can go first. Okay. So some of the strategies that I use to, make sure I was prepared for this search was, number one, I quickly realized that self-investment is the best investment you can ever make. So I learned a lot, from social media. There are a lot of, social media, the internet has a lot of resources available for students to learn about job application, right? But through that, I found out that the best way to kind of propel yourself in the job search is to actually have an experienced person guide you how to do on ways on doing that. So I realized that, rather than spending my money on things like restaurants or beer and all that stuff, I might as well use that money to invest in a career strategist. So that was one of the crucial things that I did when I was constantly facing rejection. And thankfully, I don't know why that thought came to me very quickly. But I know that self-investment is the best investment. So I invested some money on a career strategist who kind of guided me on, hey, this is how you should be doing your resume. This is how you should be having your LinkedIn profile set up. And yeah, it cost me $60 to $75, but it pushed me months ahead of my process. And then another thing I did was also constantly look up industry practices, industry norms, and industry trends, knowing what's important right now. Because yeah, my dreams and my visions may be different, and it could be outdated if you're not keeping yourself updated on what's going on right now. That could be a problem too, because you will be looking somewhere else and something else may be going on right now. So I realized that data analysis was a big thing in the industry right now. Manipulation of data was crucial in almost every industry possible. And I realized that that was my weakness. Maybe that is the reason why I'm not being it. So through that research, I found out what my weaknesses were, what my strengths were. And knowing my strengths and weaknesses, having that self-awareness gave me the advantage of, okay, these are my weaknesses. How can I strengthen this so that I can be more competitively ahead of people? So that was some of the things that I looked into and thought about as I applied for jobs.
That is great advice. And I wanted to ask a follow-up question. How did you go about finding a career strategist?
So TikTok, not even kidding. Everybody uses TikTok, right? Yeah, it's an amazing platform. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's weird sometimes. It gets dark sometimes too. But if you're in the right algorithm, it actually shows you things that you may need. And surprisingly, I found this lady who posted. She was like dancing and putting things about interviews. And I was like, man, she is interesting. I want to know who she is. So I clicked on her Instagram, and she was just starting out as an entrepreneur. So she was a global recruiting manager and a hiring manager. She left her corporate life and wanted to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go become an entrepreneur. And she was a minority person. I was like, you know what? I really want to explore the possibilities with this person. So I immediately got on her DMs, slid into her DMs, as people would say, and said, hey, I'm interested. I want to know more. How does this go? And then she quoted a lot of things. She had like a 4-month package of strategy, from A to Z, or it can get you from zero to hero kind of package. And she also had like, let me look at your resume and revise it. Let me do a cover letter for you and revise it. And my LinkedIn. So I took the package where she didn't do it. She looked over my resumes and then changed it, completely modified it. And I'll get to it on the following questions. But she completely modified it, completely created a cover letter based on my needs. We had a lot of communications, phone calls, emails. Again, it was a lot of back and forth kind of thing. And that's literally how I found someone. Again, social media is an amazing tool to find out what you want. And if you look at the right places, with hashtags saying career success, a hashtag recruiting, I promise you that you will find someone with a pretty low rate wanting to help you. Yeah, there are people who's going to charge you about $300-400 for a resume. That's for senior executives. If you're starting out fresh, you have amazing opportunities out there.
So I'm going to add a few things. I too, Yuganesh, have used a professional to help me with my materials and things. But in the event that you're broke,
True.
and $65 is like, what? I just want to remind anyone who's an alumni of the Career Center. The Career Center does provide free services for alumni. And so I would be not being very honest and transparent if I said that I both never used Missouri State University Career Center, because I did. As a graduate student, they helped me free of charge. But I have also both used a Career Center and paid for someone. If you do not have the money, we were doing things online and via telephone before the pandemic. The Career Center is going to continue to do that. If you just want to check out somebody online, the Career Contessa, I know that sounds funny, but the Career Contessa, I actually follow her on YouTube. Subscribe to her channel. I think she gives some great information, and I often reference her when I'm presenting. It's a free resource. If anybody wants a recommendation, I have 2 personal friends that are career consultants, and one used to work for a recruiting firm. So I'm not opposed to doing that. But I think Yuganesh is right. Whoever it is, you need to have someone different than you look at your materials and your resume. If you're applying for jobs and you're not getting interviews, there's a problem. And the problem could be that. The other thing I'll bring up real fast, and this is something that I think everyone needs to ask themselves. One of the reasons why my job search that I did, I guess 2 years ago, lasted for 18 months is because at that time I was geographically bound. And I think, and I've been working this summer with a gentleman, an alumni, who was just absolutely set. He had to work in Springfield, Missouri. And he's been trying to find a full-time teaching position in Springfield, Missouri for about 2.5 years. And I said, have you drawn a circle around Springfield? How far are you willing to commute? Because even, whatever geographic area you're in, there's kind of like a metropolitan area. Like, is it really prohibitive if it's going to give you more opportunities, even to be willing to get a job an hour away and live halfway between Springfield and that job? He ended up making the decision to relocate like 25 minutes down the road and to commute like 40 minutes a day, but that opened up like an ideal opportunity. So are you willing to commute? If so, how far? Are you willing to relocate? Those are two questions. The other thing is, are you looking at all the possibilities? And I'm going to put in the chat one of the resources that we use, or I use as a career resources specialist, is ONET. And one of the things I like is in the top upper corner in the search bar, you can put in a job. So like career advisor, and it'll bring you to a page. The very top, it will give you different titles that same job is called. Because sometimes if you're setting up job alerts on LinkedIn or Indeed, or even if you're looking in our on-campus site, Handshake, if you are so focused on one title, you might miss out. So the cool thing about online, or I call it ONET online, whatever you want to call it, it's in the chat, is it will help you not only see other titles that a job is called, but it will also, if you scroll all the way down, it will give you links to professional societies. And Yuganesh is right. Social media, professional societies, following them, knowing that they exist, you can follow them on LinkedIn or pick up on their free training or whatever. That's a whole nother way to have a more effective search. So you have to look at not only what is my search strategy, and if you need help developing one of those, we can help you, but also, what am I willing to do? How far am I willing to move? Or if I'm not, it will take you longer if you're not willing to relocate, and if you're not willing to commute. It just does. And there are times when people, their family situation or personal situation doesn't allow them to, but keep that in mind when you're looking.
Thank you. Lots of great advice. And I also do appreciate you mentioning the Career Center services. I think, definitely what Yuganesh said is valuable if that's something that you feel like maybe you're financially able to afford, or if you really want to go more in depth, like he did with his job search. But you're always able to utilize the Career Center services if you're a student or an alumni. And we're happy to meet with you multiple times. If you wanted to have one meeting where we look at your resume, one meeting where we look at your LinkedIn, one meeting where we do a mock interview, you're always welcome to do that.
In fact, I actually started at the Career Center.
Good.
I started, Todd Uglo was the person who overlooked my resume when I first initially started my job process back in 2019. So
Good.
That's where I started. I mean, the deeper I went into the industry, then the needs shifted. But it's a great place to start. And obviously, Career Center has amazing people there who are kind and friendly.
Thank you. We like to think so, I think. Natalie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
The only thing that I kind of thought of when I think you said the original question, like where do you start? What kind of resources might you use? I always think, especially internship searches, which like from my experience, reaching out to somebody who's in my program already, or like a year above me who's already done one, that has always been a really good help for me, at least to know where to start, even a year ahead. Like if, like when they're a year older than you and they're saying, oh, I got this internship somewhere. And you're like, I'm trying to make a list already of what I can, start to think of, and ask them questions. If it's possible, and maybe help them get a word in for you as well, can always be helpful. I know some people might change their major sometimes and they're like, didn't know I needed an internship, but especially those people who they know that their program requires one, it's just important to reach out to the people that are, you can have access to. And I know most of them are always usually really willing to help. So another free way, I guess, to reach out and get some extra help.
Yeah, absolutely. Utilizing your network is a good free way to kind of make those connections and find out about opportunities. So great. The next thing that I wanted to ask you all about, since we are kind of talking about the topic of facing some rejections in your job search. Obviously, we all know it's never fun getting a rejection. It can be kind of discouraging, especially if it was an opportunity that you were really excited about. And so, if you think back to your job search or your internship search when you were facing some rejections, what types of things did you do to stay motivated? And whoever wants to jump in.
I feel like I was always just saying to myself, it'll work out. Everything will happen fine. And I mean, it's hard to always stay positive. Of course, like I'm not trying to say, you want people to lie to your face and say, yeah, it's going to be great. But I mean, it's just nice to, encourage yourself along the way as well. Like, you humble yourself. There's always someone better than me. That's what I always say. And I mean, that's just the realistic part of it. Everyone's had different experiences. The place that you interviewed with, they were looking for someone with more direction in this area, but you might have had a lot of experience in this specific area and, just things didn't line up correctly. So it doesn't mean that you're not a terrible person or candidate for the position, but just, sometimes things just don't line up. So I always tried to tell myself that and kept pushing.
I think you cut out there at the end, but I heard you say that you were kind of basically trying to keep a positive mindset to remind yourself that it doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't a good candidate, that there could just be people that have other things that maybe you didn't have for that search. And so it doesn't mean anything negative on you. Is that kind of what you were saying before you cut out?
Yes, I just saw that my internet connection was bad, but yes.
Okay, sure. And yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm going to jump on what Natalie said. She's, as she said, I believe on this policy of only quality people. So surround yourself with quality people, people who are on the same wavelength as you are, people with the same goals as you are, because there are going to be times where you'll feel lonely. You'll feel like this is only happening to you. And at times like that, you would need someone who says, you know what, dude, I had the same problem. You're fine. You will get there. And having quality people around you, actually, for me, I look up to so many people around me, but one of them obviously is my dad. I'm very close to him. And, he says, you know what, it's okay. Just keep pushing. You try. And that's the only thing you need. Just someone telling you on the back saying, it's fine. You've been trying. And the more you try, it's going to happen. The more you hit that shovel on the wall, one day that wall is going to break. You don't know when, but you may be very, very close to breaking that wall. So surround yourself with quality people. And that was one of the key things that motivated me. And the other thing is remembering why you started. It's not about getting that position, not about getting that money. It's not about all those materialistic things. It's about achieving that dream, right? And at times it's important for us to reflect on ourselves and say, you know what, I'm going to get to that dream. One day or another, I'm going to get there. And I started for a reason. I'm going to try. What's the point of me letting go of this dream? And that's what every morning, man, I've been trying since September. Towards December, I was exhausted, mentally drained out. And I was hitting that burnout point of applying for jobs. But every day I looked at a LinkedIn profile and said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I'm going to give it a shot. You know why? Because I have a dream I have to achieve. Just remind yourself why you started and surround yourself with quality people. And trust me, that's going to propel you in various ways and pick you up when days you say, I'm done. I am so done. And someone is going to say, it's okay. Get some rest. We'll try again tomorrow. And that changes a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback. I love all of those things and agree with all of them. But I want to remind people that, especially in American culture, when you meet someone and you go, so what do you do? Right? Or at graduation, those of you who might have graduated in December or May and you haven't found a job yet, so you're watching this webinar and everybody's like, so what are you doing? I'm looking for a job. You are not your job. There's a lot of pressure to know exactly what you're going to do and have some job or whatever. And I think sometimes, and I'm an achievement-oriented person, like on the strengths finder, like achievement is always in like my top 3. And so when I set out to do something, I can be very disappointed. It can be discouraging, but you are not your job. And you can't necessarily, unless you decide to be an entrepreneur, you can't hire yourself, right? And you can't completely control the process. And so one of the things that I did to keep motivated is I had a to-do list every day. So that I also kept a list of blessings, right? Because I think sometimes we can become so focused on, I haven't found a job yet, or, oh, guess what? 3 rejections today. Oh, like, this is not feeling good. But I could be like, nope, I got my steps in. Nope, I stay within my caloric intake. No, I wanted to make sure that I, sent a card to my nephew to recognize I know he's going through a hard time. So you have to have a few other goals in your life other than finding a job that you have complete control over. So every day, and I think you need to remind or at least that's what worked for me, right? I had so many people I would reach. I'd be like, I'm going to spend 1 hour on LinkedIn every day. And during that time, I'm going to at least come up with 1 quality post or read something or follow somebody or participate in, a LinkedIn training. So I would have so much time a day I spent on the job search. And if I did that, I was successful, because to give up and quit, that's when you're really failing, right? If you're not doing your part, that's to me when you fail. And I really do have a list of blessings and things I'm fortunate to have. And so every day I'd be like, well, don't got a job, but I got these things. The other thing I would say is if you are looking for that job and you're broke, or you're getting close to broke, or you just like, I can't spend every day. There's nothing wrong with taking a part-time job or a temporary job. I went from being the senior director of a department to being a part-time church secretary and had a whole lot of fun. It got me out of the house. It got me dressing every day, and it gave me kind of a purpose while I looked for my job. And I was told repeatedly I was one of the best secretaries they'd ever had. And I was like, well, it's good to know that doctorate's paying off. It also taught me a lot, because it's been a while since I've been an entry-level employee. And I guarantee you, it opened my eyes to some things I had taken for granted regarding clerical staff, and it paid bills, right? And so there were some administrators from the university where I had been working that like walked in, they're like, oh, I didn't know you go to church here. And I was like, I don't, I'm the secretary. And they'd be like, really? And I'd be like, yeah, it's one of the most rewarding jobs I've had. And it was very rewarding. So don't be embarrassed by whatever job you take to make ends meet, if you have to do that. And remember, you are not your job, and you just have to do your part. And Yuganesh is right. Surround yourself with positive people. And if you keep hammering away, something will happen.
And I got to attest to Jerri's point on having that small achievements. Those things help you a lot, because there's going to be days where you're feeling like you're losing everything. And especially people with winning mentality like me and Jerri, who have to win, because I was hungry for that win. I needed that win in my life. And I was not making or seeing that win, right? And I was like, man, this sucks. But I was doing something else on the side. I was working towards my CrossFit goals. I was working towards my class. So those wins, those success were also like a back burner kind of thing. They were, that energy fuel you take while running a long distance, or you just squeeze. It's a short one, but it's a good one. It keeps you going. So thank you very much for sharing that. I missed out on that. That's one thing, like exercising, perfect way. I loved CrossFit. That was one place where I could just get everything out and be at peace. And I knew that, all those hormones that's being produced is helping me stay motivated. When I'm tired, exhausted, I'm putting all my frustrations into that barbell, then screaming at someone or not talking to someone, So make sure you take care of your mental health too. Mental health is important. That's one thing you got to keep in mind.
That's great. I feel like you guys are motivating me right now. All this positivity and keeping your goals outside of your job. So yeah, that's some great advice. And I'm wondering if you were to look back, maybe going through the process of your job search or your internship search, if there were things that surprised you the most that maybe when you first started you didn't expect would happen, or maybe that you wish you would have been more prepared for at the start.
I can go first. ATS, my guy. ATS is a devil. It's automated tracking system. I guess that's what it's called. It's the bot that scans your resume for most companies, and that one, I guess that bot scans your resume, and it says if you're qualified for the job based on just keywords. And those things, once they don't see those keywords, out you go. You may be the best qualified candidate for that job, but if you don't have those keywords, you're not getting through the first screening process. So that was one thing that I was very shocked. I've heard about it, but I didn't know how stringent it was, right? Until I got rejections in like 2 or 3 minutes. I was like, what? I just spent 1 hour applying for this job and I'm out in 3 minutes? That's crazy. That's when I found out how effective the ATS system is. And so that's when, strategies like making sure your resume is customized. Yeah, you don't have to change your resume to every job possible, but make sure you have your resume and your job description before you send it in. Pick keywords and change it, interchange it. Make sure it will then pick up your resume and send it over to the actual human being who's looking at it. International students, if you're watching this is a great thing for you to be aware. Authorization visa is a big problem, right? When you go through, I've applied to Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, mom and pop companies. Those big ones will usually require you to hit a button that says, I will need authorization to work in the United States now or in the future. Yeah, you may not need it now, but it says in the future. So automatically, some companies will set it as a default. As soon as you hit that, boom, you're out. Most airlines. So like I really wanted to become an analyst for United Airlines or Southwest, but then I found out I applied to tons of positions from United. I knew I was qualified for those jobs, but it'll take me like 10 minutes before I get a rejection. I'm like, what? That's crazy. How fast those rejected. I reached out to a recruiter. Again, make sure you're reaching out to people. I reached out saying, hey, what's going on? What's the deal? And he said, yeah, we just don't hire internationals. So, sometimes we don't know those insider news or insights. So that's when LinkedIn becomes a big help, right? I spoke to a friend who works in United and then was friends with another guy who's a recruiter in United. And that's how I got the news. So please be aware that being an international student is hard. It's nobody's fault. And unfortunately, that's how the policy is. So yeah, if you're getting rejected very quickly, or even if you're getting rejected to a job you thought you were well qualified for, it's not your fault. It's the policy. It's the company's policy. So.
I'm going to toss this out there just real fast. I'm going to put yet again another web address in the chat. We have a service if you are a Missouri S&T, Missouri State University, but Missouri S&T also has a service called Going Global, and you can actually search for jobs and use as a screening or a filter whether or not they sponsor students. And so you might want to go on, if you're an international student, if you need a visa now or in the future, you might want to go ahead before you take the time to apply for jobs to go on the website and research whether, because you don't want to apply for a job that you have no idea, like sometimes they just say automatically like, no, we're not going to do this. The other thing is if you get to the point where you are offered a job and you might need it in the future or something like that, you get your foot in the door. There are times, I know that there are a few times that I've had individuals negotiate for a company, but you have to get to the point you get an offer, negotiate that in lieu of a raise, they like in lieu of a such and such raise, they would give up part of their raise in a year, or they will not get a raise for the next 2 years, and in response agree to stay employed for the next 2 years with said company. So there are some negotiations with that. So Yuganesh, you're right. There are extra hurdles for international students, and we have an international workshop we do, but we're not that one scheduled for the summer. So please let us know in the Career Center if we can help you with that, because yeah, applicant tracking systems, real thing. One of the things that surprised me when I went, because I hadn't looked for a job for 9.5 years before my last search, but one of the things that actually surprised me is how willing alumni and total strangers are, how willing they are to talk to people. And so it can be intimidating. I have been called a flaming extrovert. But you would be amazed if you find somebody who works at a company and you're like, I want to work for whatever company, right? And you find somebody who works for that company on LinkedIn, and you send them a message, or you go to their website and you come up with like 3 questions you want to ask. And you have your elevator speech that's your like 30-second, hi, I'm Jerri Arnold-Cook, and I, aspire to work for your company in this area. I was wondering if you had time. Back in the day, it was to have coffee or beverage, but now it's like, can you meet me over Zoom or phone? Like 20, maximum 30 minutes to answer a few questions, and ask questions that cannot be figured out by looking at their website. It will show genuine interest and it will stick in their mind. Plus, it will make you a better interviewer because you will have inside information. As an undergraduate, I knew someone who was in the Walt Disney World college program, and I wanted to be in the Walt Disney World college program. So kind of like Natalie said, I reached out and I was like, what do I need to know? And they said, Jerri, there hasn't been a lot of advertising about it in the Midwest, but they've started building a new theme park. And I was like, really? And at that time, I'm old. The internet wasn't what the internet was. So it wasn't like I could Google like Disney's new development, but I knew that. And it was really only being advertised in Florida. And so when I interviewed, they said, do you have any questions about the company? And I said, well, are there any internship opportunities available at the new park? And they're like, you know about the new park? Automatically their ears perked up because they knew I'd gone that extra mile. And so following a company on LinkedIn, and doing some research and reaching out to people, you would be amazed. People love to talk about their job and their company. And that was the thing that surprised me the most, how willing people were to talk to me. When they didn't know me from Adam, or I'd say like, Yuganesh, it looks like you're connected to so-and-so at this company. I have some questions. Would you provide me, with an introduction to Lindsay? And maybe she'll more warmly receive this stranger's email saying, I really would love to have like a 20-minute conversation about working for, Missouri State University. Most people will do that and help you and be happy to, and it will leave a positive impression.
Not to kind of give you a different perspective of that. Yes, a lot of people will be willing to talk to you, but I've also had a lot of people who ghost me on LinkedIn. Again, it's that, I'm like what Jerri said, I'm a flaming extrovert. I call myself the extreme extrovert. So I have no problem cold calling. I love cold calling, literally. And I just don't mind texting people on LinkedIn and saying, hey, this is me, my elevator pitch, boom, boom, boom. It's all there. They'll look at it, but they won't reply. So, on a positive way of thinking, I would say, maybe they're too busy with work. I mean, these are all directors of companies, senior executives. It's fine. So I'll wait maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. I'll text them again, send them a message on LinkedIn, and then I won't get any reply, but they'll see the message. And it'll be disappointing, but you know what? It's fine. If there's 5 who's going to reply to you, 5 who's not going to reply to you. And that's how things are. Some people just don't want to help, don't want to talk. Maybe they're introverts who are shy to talk, and they may be senior directors, but maybe they're just too shy to share. You just never know what's on the other side of the stuff. So don't be disappointed or discouraged when you don't hear back from people. It's the same with interviewers too. You go through an entire interview process and then radio silence for like forever or for 3 months, and you won't hear anything. They'll make you feel like you're not important. Just don't let it get to you. Don't take it personally. Sometimes it's not you. Again, it's not you. It's just how things are run sometimes.
Natalie?
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm going to turn my picture off to see if that helps. Yuganesh, when you were talking about how people never get back to you, I was just, that did surprise me, especially this round, this past spring, reaching out and having interviews. They were like, oh yeah, we'll get back to you. Like, I would have a conversation with them, like, here's the timeline of things. And then it was like a few weeks later, and I'm like, well, I don't want to sound like a bother or whatever. And I wouldn't wait that long, but then eventually they would be like, oh yeah, we just, like they would have one time somebody actually had a new position already that did the hiring. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, but never heard back from them. But that did surprise me how much it was like, oh, we're going to get back with you, in the next 2 weeks, and then didn't hear back. So that was sometimes frustrating. Surprised me how much that happened. But again, like you said, don't let it get you down. Keep pushing forward, even though sometimes that's hard. And then another thing that surprised me when I was looking for internships in my undergraduate experience was, and I think it was just more specific to the area of the internship that I was applying to. I think that had a lot to do with it. But the amount, like broad spectrum of people who were going into grad school, some people who were going to be juniors, some people who were going to be seniors in college, like at all different levels. And I wasn't expecting to be competing with somebody who was going to be going into grad school, and I was only going to be a junior senior. And I'm like, this isn't fair sometimes, but that surprised me. But for anyone who is doing an undergraduate internship experience, sometimes that can be hard because different programs have different classes, and you are putting yourself out there saying, you want to learn from this experience. You know a little bit about a program or some type of software that they're looking for you to use in your internship. I'm like, well, I want to learn it, but sometimes they want to have someone who already knows a little bit about it. So that was fun times.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you all for sharing. And I'm recognizing the time. We want to try to wrap up by 5 p.m. So I thought this might be a good time to open it up if any of our attendees have any questions for our panelists that they would like to ask. So if you either want to unmute yourself or just type it in the chat, feel free to ask any questions that you have.
And while we wait, I had the same experience like Natalie did. I had a call with a recruiter for an hour. She was very impressed with my resume. Again, this came from cold calling. I Googled aviation consulting firms in Chicago, downtown area, and I saw this. I was like, well, this company has all the things that I need. I'm going to call them. So I called them. I said, I'm looking for an internship. Can I talk to a recruiter? And I spoke to a recruiter, and she was impressed. Had like almost a 45 minutes to 1 hour conversation. And she was like, I'll put your resume into our pipeline. Well, I'll have this done. I'll keep you posted on any positions coming open in the future. 2 weeks later, I see a notification on LinkedIn saying she moved to a different company. I'm like, what? That's 2 weeks ago, I just spoke to you and you seemed so committed to this company and you were like so gung-ho about helping me out. And 2 weeks after, you're gone into a whole new organization promoting their job offers. I'm like, how? So, and then I reached out to her saying like, hey, congratulations on your new job. That's amazing. It was great talking to you. Would you mind connecting me to the current recruiter who's there so I can still stay in touch? Thanks me for the job offer, doesn't say anything about the handing over of message. So, things like that can happen. But the fact that now that at least your resume is in the system, right? And it all takes that one effort. Just picking up the phone. Well, I know it's not as easy, but emailing them, calling them, letting them know I'm here and I want it.
I don't see any questions, so I'm going to piggyback a little bit on that and tell you that if you are rejected for one job, don't give up on that company, because coming back to a company time and time again sends its own message, its own positive message. And I had an undergraduate student who really wanted to go to work for a company. They had a 3.0 requirement. She was struggling. She was an engineering major. But she would visit at the career fair, or this particular company would sometimes do resume madness. She would visit with the representatives. So they have like name, face recognition. And she would always ask them some question other than getting my GPA, which I'm doing, trying, what do I need to do? And they knew her. Like she visited with them twice a year for 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, the guy goes, how close are you to 3? Oh, she's like, I got a 2.98. And he said, you know what, give me your resume. That company had a mentor program that did not have a minimum GPA. She went through the mentorship program, did everything she could to be an ideal mentor. And when she graduated, they decided we're just going to waive that for her because we know she's a solid, quality, hard worker. But she did actually end up with a 3.0. I know a vice president of student affairs who applied 3 times at the same institution to be an assistant director of a career center. I was part of the interview process all 3 times. And all 3 times it was like splitting hairs and she didn't get the job. The 3rd time I was like, look, people, we might as well take a chance on her. And it wasn't my hiring decision, but I advocated for her because I thought, people, it's been 5 years. She's a finalist every time. When are we going to get the message? And you know what? She became assistant director, then she was associate director, then she's a director. She is now an assistant vice chancellor of student affairs. All because I was like, people, come on. And other people on the committee were like, haven't we seen her before? I'm like, yes, and she's wonderful. What's wrong with you people? We need to hire her. So don't be afraid to reapply, because it's like Natalie said, at the time you apply, they might be looking for this. Like, you fill all these categories, but at the end of the day, what they really want is somebody that has this experience, and it's the one experience you don't have. And so they love you and they wish they had 2 positions, but they only have 1, so they go with the other candidate. But if you keep coming back, somebody at some point is going to be like, we need to take a chance on this person.
If you're annoying enough, they'll remember you. The other thing I wanted to say is one investment theory that I always love to keep in my life is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Financially, it's one of the best investment advices ever, right? Don't put all your money in one investment, because if that goes, everything goes. So when you're applying for jobs, don't put all your hopes into one job. Spread it across. I know it's exciting, it's fun. Oh, this job is perfect. But spread your emotions around a little bit, spread your energy, your efforts around, because you're still going to get some return. Either way, you're going to learn something, one thing or another. Every job application that I got rejected from, I learned something new. I applied to this job in Washington, like Seattle, right? And I loved this job. Amazing tower. It was like a 42-story building, and we were on the top. The office was on the top building. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to love this thing. I'm just going to do research. I found out a lot about that company, what they do, the city. You're still learning. Yeah, I got rejected from it. Yeah, perfect. Whatever. But I learned something. And always have that mentality of, if I'm failing, it's fine. I'm learning one thing. And that one thing is going to pile up into something that I can use in the future. and don't invest all your efforts into one particular thing, because if that drops, that's going to hit you a lot more, and that's going to take a lot out of you. So spread it across and be aware of where your energy is going. Don't get to a point where you're fatigued because you're so focused on one particular thing.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of great advice. I appreciate everything that you all have had to share today. And I was wondering if it would be okay with you, since people aren't asking questions now, but maybe they would want to connect with you later on, if I copied and pasted everybody's LinkedIn profiles in the chat. So that way, if they have questions later, they can connect with you. And then also it's good practice, since we've talked a lot about LinkedIn today, reaching out and messaging and getting that practice. So would that be all right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
LinkedIn is my new Facebook.
It's pretty great. And while I'm doing that, Jerri, I hate to ask you to kind of work while you're a panelist, but would you mind, while I'm searching and copying and pasting those, to just kind of remind people of our services and how they would find us and reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Missouri State University Career Center, as in case somebody joined late, does provide services free of charge to both current student as well as alumni. I've been working with alumni this summer, actually. We provide document preparation, help you prepare documents, and that can be cover letters, resumes, sometimes thank yous. Sometimes it'll be a personal statement if you're applying to graduate school. We do interview prep on our website, on the Missouri State University Career Center website. If you scroll down on the page, you will see that there's a thing called Interview Stream. You can actually call up the Career Center, email us. You can use Handshake if you have a Handshake account. You should if you're a current student or have been a student within the last 2 years. You can schedule a mock interview, or there's a program called Interview Stream, and it allows you to participate in an interview, record yourself so you can play it back and see what you are like when you interview, or you can submit it so you can have a professional critique that. So that we have interview services, we do job search strategy. When there's not a pandemic, we also do things like in-person mock interviews, speed networking, career fairs, all those kinds of things. So check out the Missouri State University Career Center. Every college at the campus has a career resource specialist. We all work with students who have no idea what they want to do. We all work with students who need just a mock interview. But if you are really fine-tuning materials for a specific discipline, we are doing a job search for a specific discipline. We also have career specialists assigned to different colleges, because we know that within some, like I work with College of Humanities and Public Affairs. So I've, done some training on how to be successful as an applicant to law school. So all the different majors sometimes have a little bit different tweaks. We'd be more than happy to help you. So those are some of the services we provide. And if I didn't mention something and you're hoping we do it, call us, because we might, and I just forgot to tell you.
Okay, great. Well, we will go ahead and conclude the panel. So I just wanted to thank you all again for offering your time today and for sharing your insight and advice. I know there's things for myself even that I was wanting to take note of that I learned today. So I really, really appreciate all of you. And of course, feel free to reach out to the Career Center, and we would be more than happy to help you if you need help on your job search. So. All right.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Okay. Guess we'll go ahead and log off. So
thank you guys. Have a good day.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good evening.
Thank you.
Easy. Bye.